Hey friend, today's episode is just going to be raw and unfiltered. I'm just going to post it as it is. I wanted to sit here and talk to you as though we are face to face, having a cup of coffee together. And I'm not even going to put in like my intro or my outro or my pitch or anything. I feel like an unfiltered conversation is what this needs to be today. So I just wanted to get on here and touch base. I really didn't even know what my episode was going to be about today. And I was talking with a friend and she was like, why don't you share what you went through last week? Like that would be a perfect thing to share and help encourage other entrepreneurs. And I was like, oh, that's actually a great idea. So shout out to my girl, Christina, for giving me the encouragement and the inspiration for this episode. Last week, I did not post or I did not drop any episodes last week, and I did not engage in my Facebook group at all. Gosh, I haven't sent an email for probably 3 weeks. I don't even know. So last week, I just completely crashed and burned, you guys. It just was such a shit show. I was very sick. I still kind of I feel great, but you can probably hear it in my voice. I'm super nasally still. I was so sick and it was just, normal busyness of life, nothing bad. Kids were sick as well. They were super busy, soccer, football, just all the things. A few weeks ago, I had made the decision to close my skincare studio. I have been in business as an esthetician, as a solopreneur for 20 years. I mean, if you've listened to my podcast before, you've just heard me talk about burnout and the burnout experience that I've had with entrepreneurship and, really crashing and burning with that a couple of years ago. And I've just been in this constant burnout state for the last several years. Pairing that with the fact that I know that this was just the door that God was asking me to close. And, he's opening a different door for me to do other things. And so that's a big, huge part of it. It's this huge change of closing my business, really closing this piece of my life and my identity that I'd had so long. And I knew it was the right thing to do. And I feel really relieved and good about it and all the things. I definitely know it's exactly what needed to happen and it's a good thing, but still huge change, crazy huge change. So I quit my job. I got so sick. The other side of me quitting my job was just moving forward into this new phase of my life, which is starting with this podcast, and then other things are going to be building off of this. And I thought when I quit my job, I would just be able to go full in on, what I consider this to be a ministry. I just thought I can go all in on this ministry. It's all about God. It's all for his glory. It's all about the kingdom, all the things. It's going to be so amazing. It's going to be so great. It'll be easy. It'll flow. It'll just feel so good. I just had this amazing idea of what it was going to be. And really, I just instantly, fell back into my old habit of being in hustle mode. It's okay, well, now I'm doing this podcast, but I'm okay, I need to gear up and start doing YouTube video, and I need to get all this information posted on a blog, and I need to have an email with all the things. I have to have my Facebook group. I have to post in it every day. I have to do this, I have to do that. It's just 1,000 boxes to check all the time, which is okay. It's not a bad thing. And I think you can check all these boxes without it being a hustle. But for me, it was just in that place of I just slid right back into this, okay, well, what are my numbers? This isn't growing. How come this episode didn't grow? Are these keywords good enough? I don't know what my keywords are. What are these? Is this SEO good enough? What do I do for this? What do I do that? How come this isn't growing? How come that's not growing? How do I make this grow? It just was right back into hustle mode. I got rid of one thing and I just replaced it with another. It was just, like I said, old habits die hard. And so I quit my job. I was super hustling, trying to figure out all this podcast and what was happening next thing. I was over planning. I wasn't just resting and letting God show me what was next. I was uber planning everything to death, trying to figure out everything in my own understanding, which absolutely did not work, does not work, never will work. And I just like totally crashed and burned, and on top of it, just like being sick physically, like being really sick. And then of course I just was like hormonally in a terrible place. And it was just like the perfect storm of madness, like my poor family. I am grateful that I crashed and burned really quickly, though. I'm glad that I realized that I had slid back into this hustle mode with this podcast. I'm glad it only took me a couple weeks to figure that out. And maybe just being in this constant burnout space, maybe it just isn't going to take as long to crash, whereas before it took me years. And now maybe it just will never take that long. But the thing is, I don't want to crash. I don't want you to crash. Like, we don't want to crash in burnout mode. And if we do, it's okay. It's fine. It's just, I got back to that point because I was controlling again. It was like, I thought that moving into this next phase that was really just all about God and whatever He wanted for my business and all the things. I mean, it's not even my business. It's His business. I just thought once the studio door was closed and this other thing was open, it was just going to be so amazing and easy. And I mean, that's just a lie that I've believed for so long, because that's what the world tells us. Everything is easy. Do what lights you up. Do what makes you happy. Chase your dreams. Everything's sunshine and roses all the time. And if it's not, you need to quit and do something else. So these are the lies that we are just subconsciously brainwashed to believe, because that's what we see and hear everywhere in our world. But we know those are lies of the world. That is not the truth. The truth is, just because God's asking you to do something and just because you obey, it doesn't mean it's going to be easy and amazing. We can look at all these people and their stories in the Bible, and nobody was doing anything like super glamorous and amazing. Nobody was living this super easy, cushy life where everything just flowed perfectly and made perfect sense, and God gave them the entire blueprint the entire time. Nobody did anything that wasn't difficult. And of course, they did experience like joy and peace, even in all the hard things that they did. And I'm not saying that everything He asks us to do is going to be like drudgery and like terrible. I mean, obviously that's not true. I just thought in my own little ridiculous mind that everything was just going to be so great. And like, here's the other thing. Because I've been in this state of burnout for so long, the fact is, I don't even want to be an entrepreneur. I don't want to do it. I don't want to build anything. I don't want to do anything. I'm exhausted. I don't want to think about my business. I want to just go work at a coffee stand and come home. I don't want to think about work. I don't want to run a business. I don't want to build anything. That's the truth. I don't. I'm exhausted and I don't want to do it. But the other truth is God's asking me to do it. And so I do have a willing, underneath my bratty attitude, I do have a willing heart and like a joyful heart to do it and obey. But in my flesh, I'm tired and I don't want to do it. And I think that's the piece, that just made me kind of crash. I didn't think I would have this like attitude. I didn't think I would feel exhausted. I didn't think that I would feel like I don't have the strength or the perseverance or the tenacity or the patience. I just thought all of those things would naturally vibe and it would just be so easy and it would all just work out, and or that it would work out effortlessly, and that could not be further from the truth. And so, aside from just not feeling well, I just, kind of just had a tantrum, and I was like, I'm over it and I'm quitting all of these things. I'm quitting. And of course, God was like, no, you're not quitting, because if I quit, how is that working for the kingdom at all? That's just quitting. What I came to realize is it is okay to not want to do something all the time. Of course, we need to change the attitude of our mind. We don't always want to be crabby. We don't always want to be complaining, but we are human. And I think even when we have a willing heart, even when we have the heart of a willing servant, we can still not want to do something. And we can be honest with God. It's okay. Moses was like, I don't want to do this. Send someone else. Elijah was like, I would rather die than keep going. Moses got Aaron as a helper, but God still was like, you're going to do this. I'm sending you. Elijah got an angel and a fire and some food and a nice long nap. Like, God restored Elijah, and then he was able to continue with his mission for God. And to be frank, Elijah was kind of a badass. God equipped him to go do the work that he had, but he didn't want to. Moses didn't want to do it. Jesus prayed in the garden and said, take this cup from me, but if it is your will, I will do it. I mean, he sweat blood in the garden. I don't think that he was super excited about going to the cross. He still was man. In his flesh, he probably really didn't want to do it. We don't always have the feelings. I mean, and that's the thing. Our feelings don't dictate our faith. We're not always going to feel like we want to do something. I don't feel like being an entrepreneur. I don't want to. And God's like, guess what? You're going to do this anyway. And I'm like, don't send me. I don't want to. And he's like, I'm sending you. You're going to do this. And I'm like, guess what, God? I don't have the strength. I don't have the perseverance. I don't have the patience or the grace. I don't want to do it. And he's like, it's fine. I have all those things. I've got it. I mean, really, we are just, a tool isn't, I guess the worldly view of the word tool is negative, but like, we are God's tools. We are his vessel to go do his thing. But like, we don't actually have to do anything. It's not our own strength that we tighten a bolt. Our arm is helping the wrench tighten the bolt. Like, the wrench is the tool. We still have to move. I still have to move my arm to move the wrench. We still have to act and obey. But God, it's his strength that uses us to do the thing. We really can't do anything in our own power. And that's just another worldly lie that we're led to believe. Put your mind to it and you can do anything. Try hard enough and you can do anything. Yes and no, but you know what I mean. Yes, we have to have a good attitude and a willing spirit, and we do have to work hard. It's not that we don't work hard, but there's peace and blessing behind it when we are working hard for the Lord. But sometimes our attitude might not match, and sometimes we just are going to be in a bad mood about it, and we just kind of have to wait it out. We can't always talk ourselves out of a bad mood. Sometimes I have a bad attitude and I'll read scripture, listen to different worship music, and have conversations with God, and it does change my mood. But, other times, really, ladies, for us, hormonally, talking about hormones and different seasons and times of the month, we can't always talk ourselves out of our bad attitude. It's just there, and we just kind of have to wait it out. And those are just part of, the things that I experienced last week. And I guess, again, I'm just sharing it because hopefully it will encourage you. If you feel like quitting and if you feel like you don't have it in you, if you need a week off to rest, take the week off to rest. And actually, this was also a good lesson learned for me. Like, I need to have I don't like batching content. I don't like batching tons of episodes. I don't like batching and pre-scheduling tons of content for Facebook or whatever, or like even my emails. But like, this is a good lesson. If you are creating content in any way, shape, and form in your job, you should have a few backup pieces for when you have these moments where you just don't even have it in you, where you can't talk yourself out of your bad attitude and you just can't even come up with something to write or say for content because or maybe you're really sick like I was, or it was both or all the things. Maybe you're burnt out and you're sick and you have a terrible attitude. And so like, have a little bit of content backed up in your back pocket just in case. Just a random tip. Oh, anyway. Okay. I am glad I got to chat with you today about these things. Again, I hope it was just encouraging. I always hate talking about my stuff because I feel like I don't want this to be all about me. And honestly, during my meltdown, that was kind of another thought that I had. I was like, I want to quit my podcast. I'm turning off my website. I'm signing out of all my social medias. I'm not going to email anybody ever again. I literally just wanted to fall off the face of the digital earth because I felt like sliding back into this hustle mode with this podcast and whatever this is I'm supposed to be building. I just felt like I had turned it all around to be like all about me, and I didn't like it. I don't want this to be all about me. Finally, I'm at this place and I'm not above anybody. I could backslide tomorrow, but it was like I finally got to this place where I felt like I don't want to be some famous podcaster. I don't want to be Instagram famous. I don't want to, be best-selling author. I don't want to be a millionaire. Like, this is not about me or my fame. I don't want any of this recognition. And I just kept thinking of John 3:30. He must become greater. I must become less. I just kept thinking that. And I'm like, I want to get off this digital world and just be totally forgotten. Like, I'm over it. Again, in this time of rest, God was like, you're not making this all about you, Beth. If you are sharing your stories, it's because other people share in your stories. Other people share in your suffering. These are things that encourage other people. Like when I read all about Moses, I don't put Moses above God. John isn't writing his book to exalt himself, or John the Baptist isn't doing anything he's doing because it's about him. Their intentions are all to point to God. And so even if I'm talking about my experience, doing it from a place of like, okay, this is what I went through, but I can get through these things with God. These are the things he showed me. These are the things he's encouraged me to do. These are his truths that I've learned through my experiences. And then when I share them with you, hopefully, you resonate with that, or you see God working in those things. And then it just furthers encourages you, just like every other person we read about in the Bible. Everyone in the Bible is just a normal human being. Except for Jesus, of course, but like everyone we read about in the Bible is just an ordinary person. And these things are recorded for a reason. Like I am recording this message and putting it out into the world for a reason. It's not because it's about me, and it's not because I'm trying to get famous as this podcaster. It's just, these are the things that I'm walking through with God, and he's like, share these with other people because somebody out there needs to hear it. So I encourage you in that as well. Don't quit. Don't give up. Remember that God has the equipping for you, and these are things that we know and read and learn in Bible studies, or, women's groups, or through podcasts, but sometimes we just really have to experience it before we figure it out. I hope and pray that you're not like me. I think that I really have to be broken down to a stump before I figure it out and learn. I learned the hard way. God has to put me through the ringer for me to get it through my thick skull. I hope that you're not like that. I hope that you don't learn the hard way. I hope that you learn things quicker and less painfully than I do. So anyway, thank you for listening and hanging out with me today. I appreciate you. I hope this message was encouraging to you. I'm going to leave my email in the show notes of this episode. Please email me if you have any prayer requests. I would love to pray for you and your business and your journey through entrepreneurship in any way that you need. My emails are only read by me. It is absolutely confidential no matter what, so don't worry about that. And I will see you back here in a couple days.